Hello, I'm Steve, and welcome to Manticore. This is my, excuse me, my second podcast. First of all, thank you so much to the people who've made kind comments about the first podcast. I didn't know how it was going to go. I couldn't be sure. I've done some podcasts about other things before, but never about comics. And I've received all sorts of communication. People on Facebook, and people have sent me emails, and there's been some comments included in here. And some of the stuff that people have said to me has been very encouraging. So I'm glad that at least somebody had found some fun or enjoyed a little bit the previous podcast, and hopefully we can carry on where we left off. So you have to excuse my throat. I am a bit croaky at the moment. I'm not ill or anything. I just, when in the winter you get that kind of a, frog in your throat. Well, that's basically what I've got. But I'll still do my best to plug through. So a few people on Facebook were asking me a couple of questions, and I'll answer those questions. They were like, how many comics have you already sorted? Well, about half of them. Now, what I'll probably do with the podcast is I'll probably dig out some of the ones that I've already sorted and resolved, and then use them for future podcasts, as well as uncovering ones I haven't opened yet. But today I've got a new box. I've got a pile next to me here that I've just pulled out of one of the boxes, and I'm not showing you all of them by any intents. Every box has got several hundred in it, but I'm showing you the things that are of interest to me, or just things that seem to be a talking point. And I'm sure I'll get better at this as we go along and find things that you're more interested in, or if you tell me by commenting, then I'll know what you like and what you don't like, won't I? And also, to the guys on the comic buying and selling page on Facebook, thank you for letting me post a link to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you carry on enjoying it. To my old friend Jeff, who Jeff Denslow, who used to, he was my best friend back when I was at school and a little bit after school, and although he now lives on the other side of the world, still a great friend of mine. And he's sent some encouraging words because he used to collect comics with me. And back in the day, when we were kind of teenagers, and late teenagers, I must admit, when we were first driving and stuff, we used to go up to London to a place on Neal Street whose name, I think, Comic Showcase is what it was called. And that was, I think it's still there. I don't know if it's still there, but I presume it is. And it was a comic shop up there, and we used to go and pore over the comics, and we'd always spend a bunch of money and come back, and we had, it was a good laugh. It was a good thing we used to go and do. Nerds, yes, I suppose in a way you were, but who cares? Funny thing, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but what used to be considered massively nerdy when you was a kid, is kind of mainstream now. Video games and comics and comic book movies. Back there, you said you wanted to go and see until the sort of Batman movie came out. Until then, it just was not a very cool thing to do. But these days, it's so mainstream. Everybody likes comics and everybody likes movies and graphic novels, and I suppose that's a success, but it makes it feel a little bit less personal, I suppose. You perhaps feel a little bit less personal ownership, but it's nice that so many people enjoy the medium and the genres, so that's great. So let's kind of get along and show you some of the things I found today. I am also buying some comics. At the moment, as I said to you in the last podcast, I'm probably buying more than I'm selling, which is not the ideal situation from how it started, but it will turn around. Look, I've got plans, and I'll explain the plans as I go, but let's have a look at what we found in today's box anyway. So first of all, I wanted to show you this. I'll never get the place right. Deadman, there you go. Now this is number 4 of the Deadman series, back in, what year is it? 02, so not that long ago. It's the beginning of this this century, as it were. But I really like Deadman. I haven't read this, actually. I don't know why I've got it and haven't read it, but I haven't. But I like the character Deadman, and this is definitely one of the ones that I won't be selling. In fact, what I plan and hope to do is to collect all the appearances of Deadman in various things. Now, it's quite a big task, because Deadman's been around a long time, and there's a lot of that stuff out there to find, but that's one of the things I'd quite like to do. So I really like that. But don't you like that cover? Look at that, really nice. Really good cover. I like the costume of Deadman. It just appeals to me. For those of you who don't know, Deadman is a guy called Boston Brand. He's not alive anymore, but his power is to possess the bodies of other people. So the costume is only there when he's a ghost and people can't see him. But then, he possesses the body of someone, and he then kind of puts rights wrong and solves crimes, and that's it. But he's been involved in lots of DC crossover things, and some of the big crisis type things. He's been the lead character in a couple of times. So he's a very interesting character that kind of ties the universe together. I wonder if they'll ever make a Deadman movie. I think it could be quite good, but who knows? Who knows what they're going to do? So then I found this. This is another Harlequin. This is a Harlequin Our Worlds at War. Now, this was some kind of crossover that I missed. I remember it being around, but I never really followed it, so I don't really know the story of it. But like most Harley Quinn things, this has gone up in value quite a lot. So this is worth a few bucks, not a fortune, but it's worth, I can't remember the amount, but it's 20 quid or something like 25 quid. It's better than a single issue. And what I'm finding is a lot of this stuff it's probably about, most things are worth a quid or a couple of quid. That's the truth of it. And if you were going to sell them as a job lot to a comic shop, you're going to get 20 or 30p an issue and that seems like a rip-off. You say to a comic shop how much you give them, you think they're going to say £2,000 and they tell you, I'll give you, 80 quid. You think they're ripping you off. The truth is, it's very hard to sell comics. I'm already finding it's hard. It's hard not because people don't want them, but because the logistics of it are difficult. So, for instance, if I wanted to sell a single comic that was worth, let's say it's worth $2.95, if I go on eBay and sell it on eBay, by the time I've factored in the eBay final price cost and the PayPal charge and the kind of Gemini or other type of comic book mailer and the board and the Mylar and the postage for second class a large letter, which is what you have to send them as, you're looking at £3. So you've got the cost of selling the thing and getting it to the person is the same as you might charge for the comic. So you've then got to charge £6 for a £3 comic. And it's hard to do. It's hard to do. So a lot of people seem to try and get around it by selling job lots or by selling sets of, a run of comics by the same team or a set of numbers 8 till 14 or whatever. That's difficult too, because if you're a comic collector looking to buy number 11 of Hawkman, for instance, second series or whatever, because you don't have it, you've got everything except 11 somehow, so you go looking for it, and somebody's offering 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15, you don't want all those other comics, and they don't want to sell one comic individually to you because it's only worth $2.95 and don't want to pay £6 for it. So you can go to comic book shops. There's not that many of them left, of course, especially not here in the UK. But if you can get to one, we've got one in Peterborough, which is the nearest one to me. So if, let's say I go there and start sorting through the boxes, I could lose a morning driving to Peterborough, finding somewhere to park, going in the shop, sorting through the comics, trying to find my missing ones, looking at my list, looking for all the things I'm trying to find, and then not find it. Not that wouldn't be a fun morning, because I'd really enjoy browsing the shop, and I haven't been to the Peterborough comic shop, but I'm told it's really good. So that would be fun in that respect, but it's not very effective on what you're trying to achieve. So it's hard to sell comics. I've got some ideas for how I'm going to do it. A lot of people sell them on Facebook, and I've noticed the prices on Facebook, sorry comic book selling page guys, but the prices are quite escalated. In fact, that's a good thing, but people seem to be prepared, well, certainly are asking for more than I think these books are individually worth in a lot of cases. I guess because they expect to get offers, but sometimes quite substantially more, and some of them do seem to be selling. So I guess not all collectors spend a lot of time checking the prices before they buy. Perhaps there's a lot of wealthy collectors out there. Who knows? We're going to find that out when we get to doing a bit more intensive selling. I've dabbled in it a bit so far and had some success, but we're gonna hot this up a bit. But I'll explain that later. Anyway, back onto the comics. So I'm only showing you this one because I love the cover. So this is Wildcats Trilogy #1. Now, back in the 90s, this was a big thing. All these flashy, fantastic covers. You can't see, but that's kind of foil, and it's embossed. It's a little bit raised, and it's glossy. It's metallic looking. It's a really good looking comic, and it's in absolutely mint condition, I'm pleased to say. Well, certainly near mint anyway. Now, these aren't worth very much because this was during the Image period, where what happened was a bunch of creators got pissed off with Marvel and DC for one reason or another, broke away from them, set up their own comic publisher, but basically sold individual titles, creator-owned titles. A whole bunch of them, famous guys did it. I forget exactly who they were, but I know Todd McFarlane did, and that guy whose art I really don't like, but everyone else loves. God, I forget his name. Drew the ridiculously oversized Captain America that is famously haunted his career ever since. It'll come back to me. I forget. Anyway, never mind. But that is great. And typical of the 90s, a lot of the comics looked really good. But because they printed so many of them, it was a boom time for comics. And they printed so many that because the supply is strong, despite good demand still, they aren't worth a lot of money. A couple of quid. Looks like it should be worth more. I bet back then. Here's a funny thing I found as well. Sometimes there are 2 editions, or sometimes 15 editions, but if they say there's 2 editions of a comic, And one of them is the kind of embossed super special collector's edition. It says printed on it collector's edition. And the other one is the regular edition. Sometimes the regular edition that looks half as good is worth more. Because I guess more people bought and looked after the special ones, and not so many people, if you've got a choice, super special, glossy, embossed, turns into a paper aeroplane, whatever special effect, that's the one you buy, right? So there's more of them out there to buy, so the supply is high, and the laws of supply demand makes them worth less now. So interesting quirk of comics. There's this one. This is a Dark Horse, another one of the publishers still going today, of course. This is Titan. Now, I don't remember Titan, so I'm guessing he never did very well. Perhaps others will know differently, but I don't remember this at all. But I really look at that character. I mean, I'm a kind of a fan of kind of the old-fashioned, powerful coloured pop art style. That really kind of dark, strong outlines. Look at the thick outlines around the art. Really sort of thick outlines with powerful popping colours on the. I love all this stuff. Not such a fan of kind of the arty, kind of Vertigo style thing. That Vertigo style, the fashionable stuff. Some of it I like, but I'm a bit more of a kind of a four-colour maestro, as it were. That's what I enjoy. But this is another one I really like the look of. This is Shadowhawk. Now look, isn't that amazing? So that's another one of these kind of 80s. They were doing all these things with comic book covers. And this one is basically jet black, and you can't even see, you can just see the writing. I've got to take it pretty close for you to start seeing because it's embossed in there, but you can feel the writing. And then it's foil behind that, and they've cut out the black to show the foil through, so it's sort of 2 layers. Looks brilliant in the collection. I mean, I just really like it, but it's worth absolutely nothing. Check the price on it, it's worth a couple of quid. Don't think I'll sell it because that's a nice display piece. Here's another interesting one. We're kind of doing some indies today, you might have noticed. I will get to some more well-known stuff, but look at this one. This is called Twisted 3D. I don't think the camera's going to pick it up, but it's definitely got a 3D effect on the cover. The eyes kind of seem to follow you. Perhaps I'm imagining that, but it's definitely weird anyway. Really good looking cover. It's by a producer called Blackthorn Publishing. They did some stuff. I've seen them around. I've got a few other things by them, but absolutely mint condition. Not worth a fortune. Never mind. We're getting to some better stuff, I promise. Excuse me. Right. Now, here's Vampirella Lives. Another character that did well in the 90s. Perhaps before that, I can't quite remember. But certainly was popular. A period where all the girls were fantastic looking and hot with these really skimpy costumes, and that really sold well in the comic shops for a while. There was all sorts of titles, but Vampirella, particularly well-lasting one. And in a bath of blood there, look, you see that? But and these Vampirellas, they're still popular. It's not worth a lot of money, this one, but people, and the artist who drew Vampirella is back again. Actually, he's doing an Indiegogo self-funded campaign. I've just recently purchased an alternate cover with Ethan Van Sciver on it. It's one of my favourite comic book creators and artists. Really good. And I've backed the Vampirella one on Indiegogo as well. So turn your eyes away if you're under 18, because the next one's got a bit of an adult picture on it, but never mind. So this is Jurassic Jane. There you go, Jurassic Jane. Another one of those ones from that period where it says for mature readers, where kind of having the boobs out was a good thing and everybody used to sell the comics. But it's great art. I mean, you can't deny it's really good art. And I don't know about the story. I've never read it, but these seem to have retained their value quite well. So the next one is a new buy. So this one is a graphic novel called The Program. This wasn't part of my collection. I've bought this, and I bought it because, as I said, I like Ethan Van Sciver, and somebody put on Twitter that he'd done a secret alternative cover that people didn't know about to this, and so I immediately went on eBay and bought it because I like Ethan Van Sciver stuff. This is the alternative cover. Okay, let me just get in the right place. See that this guy here, that page. I'm not sure I can really show you. Terrible at getting the right positioning, but it is a really cool looking kind of skull face and rictus teeth, and it's just great. Really, Ethan Van Sciver does a lot of detail, and this is a very close-up picture, but well, I really like it anyway. I think it's brilliant. That's the only reason I bought that. I got a good deal on it too. Now, if I know stuff Ethan Van Sciver does, now that people are aware of this, the price will rise. Okay, so still keeping on to the kind of independent comics and the kind of skimpy clad sexy girls. This is called Purgatory. Now, this was one of the comics produced by Chaos Comics. Now, I think they're finished now. I think they've gone. But back in the 90s, they were putting all sorts of stuff out, particularly famous for comics like Lady Death and Evil Ernie, which I think we'll get to one of the Evil Ernies. And there's a whole bunch of them, and Purgatory was one of their heroes, kind of demon woman with huge wings and red skin. There's the picture again. And this is Purgatory taking on Dracula. Now, I don't know if people read these. I never read them, but they were great to have in your collection because they just look good. You know, they're a nice effect. I'm sure that Chaos Comics had loads of dedicated fans who liked watching them. All of these, by the way, were in the same box. I'm guessing this was a shelf from my comic shop that featured the independent comics. I'm guessing because why would they all be together? And here's one, Weird Science. Now, sadly, this isn't the original Weird Science. Those are worth quite a lot of money. If you've got these back from whenever it was, the 60s or the 70s or whenever they came out originally, 50s, I don't know, but they're old. Oh yeah, it says at the top there, look, fantastic 1950s, so 1950s comic. So they're really getting on. If you've got some of these and they're in good nick, they're worth money. This is a reprint that I think they did in the 90s because they recognised that people still liked them and they wanted to see them. These EC comics, if you've got any of these EC comics, they're well worth trying to sell because they've got a busy collector's market. Now, I used to love them when I was a kid. I used to still be able to buy them in the newsagents occasionally. Not these Weird Science, not these ones, but there were others that came along later with kind of mystery, 5 or 6 mystery stories in them. I think it was called Suspense, one of them. Anyway, I used to have a bunch. I don't know where they've gone. I've lost them along the years. But I've thought about collecting these. But the prices are just too high. I mean, you've got to be too wealthy. It's too rich for my blood. So that's probably not going to be one I pursue, but I like that anyway for a show. I thought this was interesting. This is an independent comic called Angel Girl. And the reason I'm showing you it is because, do you see the writing? They've gone with dark blue on a black cover. Now you've really got to kind of zoom into it to see it. You can't read it because it's quite hard to see. Now I can't work out whether they were just not very good at desktop publishing or design or whatever you call it then, or whether that's deliberately meant to be virtually impossible to read. I don't know. Inside it's all black and white. Back cover is black and white. Demon Bitch is the cover on the back. So tasteful title. Still got some value, those. Another one, this from London Knights. They were another quite well-known independent publisher of the day. These guys don't sound anything like Marvel and DC. They're not in the same level, but they were popular. Here's another parental advisory one, presumably because it becomes more scantily clad inside, or sometimes because there's a lot of violence or adult content, but more often than not because there's boobs out. And I've never read Razor, and they've retained their value okay. So here's Evil Ernie that I was telling you about. And that's Lady Death next to him, probably the most famous Chaos character. She's very popular. Number ones and collector's editions of Lady Death still worth some money. Evil Ernie less so. But they were fun comics, and I really like the art. Looks amazing. You can't say it didn't. These comics, perhaps it's different in other places, but where I lived, these weren't collected by quite the same sort of comic collector. So it wasn't your die-hard superhero people. But back in the 80s, there was a kind of an alternative movement, and every town had a pub where alternative people went, and they had kind of a goth look to them, you know, and went on black leather, and the blokes wore motorbikes and studs, and all the girls had kind of white faces and black lipstick. I mean, it's a thing you don't see so much of now, but back in the 80s, a lot of people did it. And it was the people of that group, that kind of set, who bought comics would often buy Chaos Comics because they were kind of targeted to them. That's not hard and fast. Obviously, lots of people liked them, but you know what I mean. That was the kind of audience, if you like. Okay, so now we're on to one that I think is great. So I was going through my pile and I came across a pile of these V for Vendetta comics. A V for Vendetta by DC. There's a whole bunch of V for Vendetta comics. They're Mylard, but they're not backed, and they were just stuck in a pile. And this is Volume 2, Volume 8, Volume 5, Volume 7, of a total of 10. So the whole story for V for Vendetta is told in these 10. I'm guessing it's the same story as the movies, because of course the movie came from graphic novel and these comics. I presume I've read the graphic novel, but I've never read the comics. See that stick together? Don't worry, that's the Mylars. The comics are fine. Now, I went looking at the price for these now, £2 or £3, but then I found this one. And this is Viva Vendetta #1 in absolutely mint condition. Absolutely mint. It's in brilliant condition. Well, I say absolutely mint. There's a slight mark there, so maybe near mint. But certainly very good. Certainly a high quality condition. I'm bad to say very good because that is an actual condition rating for comics, and it's a bit of a way down. So I don't mean very good. I mean it's great condition. And this, in this condition, is, I'm told, by Comic Base worth £40. You can't always trust Comic Base, so I've been onto eBay and looked, and where this is selling, it's selling for about £40. And I looked at you can do a search on eBay to find what was actually sold, and 2 of these have sold for around £40. So it is worth it. So that's a really good find, I think, anyway. Okay, so next I've got a bunch of Wolverines. Well, no, I've got 2 Wolverines, but loads more of these, don't worry. There's lots of Wolverines, but in this pile, there's just a number 70 and a number 79 Wolverine. And they're both in great condition, nothing wrong with them at all. This whole box was I've had a couple of other boxes that had problems throughout, but this one wasn't one of them. These Wolverines were so mass printed back when they were made, they're not worth a lot unless you catch one which introduced a special plot or a special character more generally, like first appearance of Sabretooth or someone. Don't know if that was in Wolverine, but you know what I mean. Okay. Wet Works is a Image Comics. I said Image broke away. They were a publication house that broke away from DC and Marvel, did their own thing. Very, very big in the 90s. Still doing okay to this day. But they really kind of rocked the boat when it all happened, and were part of the big comic explosion that happened thereafter. I've got an X-Files comic. Have retained their value, surprisingly, given that I think only people of my sort of age remember X-Files these days. Certainly my son doesn't know a clue what X-Files were. It was a massive thing when I was younger. I should point out, those people, obviously I'm wearing a t-shirt today. Last time I wore a black kind of high-necked t-shirt, and a couple of people said, with the black background of the Manticore screen, your t-shirt kind of blended in with it, and so you looked like a floating head, like Max Headroom kind of bobbing around the screen, which is quite cool, and I might do it again. I don't mind being a floating head, but I thought, well, I'll wear my OK Boomer t-shirt today. This is Vanguard. Don't know much about Vanguard. One of the big muscular Image characters, or I'd never really knew. Right, so we've got some X-Files, and now we're on some of the kind of X-Men titles. So this is XSE, which stands for Xavier's Security Enforcers. It was one of the many kind of spin-off teams of the X-Men. And I've always found with X-Men comics, and I love the X-Men, I think the X-Men are great, particularly the original X-Men. But the spin-offs are either great or they're not great. And it really depends on the sort of character you like, you know? I mean, I don't like the Avengers when kind of it's all about Thor, and I'm not a big fan of Black Panther. I'm not an enormous fan of Vision and Scarlet Witch, and so that kind of period I didn't like of the Avengers. With the X-Men, I don't know. I can kind of take them or leave them. I don't know much about Xavier's Security Enforcers, but this one's got Bishop and Shard in them. I quite like Bishop, quite like Shard, so I'm sure it'll be good. But I've not read. I don't remember what the storylines were from these. But there are so many X-Men spin-offs, and some of them, I wasn't a big fan of X-Force, got loads of them, but I wasn't a big fan. But I really like New Mutants. I liked X-Factor. I think it had Cyclops in it originally, and I'm a big fan of Cyclops. Oh look, and speaking of X-Force, here's X-Force, Rob Liefeld. That's the artist I was trying to think of, Rob Liefeld. I say that because this art reminded me of Rob Liefeld, and maybe it is Rob Liefeld. Let's have a little look. It's by... No, it's not at all. So I was completely wrong about that. But never mind. It's by Greg Capullo, apparently. So there you go. But that's a bit like the Liefeld style kind of... I mean, I don't know a lot about art, so I don't claim I do. But that kind of scratchy style and big guns, massively oversized muscles, that kind of thing. So I've got a bunch of X-Men here. I've got X-Men Unlimited. I haven't priced any of these yet, so I don't know what they're worth. But a lot of these ones, again, they're not going to be worth a couple of quid, most of them, unless something special happens. There's some X-Men, and I've got a pile of X-Men here. I mean, there's 20 or 30 X-Men in that pile, and then it moves from Marvel to DC, and we go to the Teen Titans. Now, I don't know what you guys know about the Teen Titans, but the Teen Titans originally were the kind of the junior heroes like Robin and who else was in it? Aqualad and Wonder Girl, and there were Speedy, who was the kind of the young Flash. And then they've gone through various incarnations and changed over the years. They quite often go back to those original characters, but they've got gradually older. And Robin became Nightwing, and the kind of later versions of the Titans have the older versions of the characters. In between, they've had versions like this. Now, this was a period where they decided to have a whole different team, where they had almost none of the originals. And I think the Atom was in it, because the adult character, the Atom, got regressed and became a child or a teenager for a while, and then joined the Teen Titans. I quite liked it, actually. But I don't think it really took off. It went on for a bit, and then they kind of closed it and went back to the original Titans again. So I guess people called that what they were used to. What have we got here? So this is more Teen Titans. Same ones, the Teen Titans, with the kind of the different team. I remember that kind of blue electricity looking girl whose name I forget. There you go, there's all of them, and I think, sorry about the glare, but you can down the bottom here is the Atom, I think. Yeah, that's the Atom at the bottom there, is the young version of the Atom. Interesting thing. And then I've got Time Breakers. Now I've got loads of these, so I'm guessing it's a Helix comic. I know nothing about it at all, but I've got loads and loads and loads of them. So I'm guessing I was offered some sort of promotional deal from the distributor to have a certain amount of them, and I took it and then didn't sell any of them. So it was a 5-issue mini-series, and I got about 5 sets of all the issues. So that's definitely going to be one I sell as a complete set. I don't know if people are interested in Time Breakers. I really know nothing about it. It looks like, the clues in the name, in it, some sort of time travelling escapade. Could be good. We'll see. I'll read it perhaps and review it or something, and then tell you. So Thunderbolts. So I liked Thunderbolts. Now, when Thunderbolts first appeared, there was a new Marvel super team, and the clever thing was that they were put together. They were a bunch of guys who were kind of anti-heroes or half-heroes or reformed villains trying to prove themselves. And I forget, there was a kind of a swashbuckly guy whose name I forget, who was the leader who put the group together, but he was very mysterious. And he turned out to be a villain. I won't say who, because I don't know, spoilers. But he turned out to be a villain, a fairly famous villain, a Captain America villain, I think he was. And pretending to be this other alter ego, and he had a completely villainous plan for why he'd put Thunderbolts together. But even after all of that was resolved, the story carried on, and different incarnations of the team carried on. I didn't really follow it after that, but I enjoyed it to start with. Just trying to find if I can find one with a good picture. Oh, it actually tells you. In fact, it's not really a big secret, because I think it basically tells you who he was. But I don't know if you can see the guy in the top corner there, but he was the leader, whose name I forget, but he actually turned out to be Baron Zemo under a false incarnation. So there you are. Did a spoiler after all. West Coast Avengers, kind of a secondary Avengers team that went on for quite a lot of it. I think they did 80 or 90 comics. Hawkeye led them. They were kind of lower powered than the real Avengers, kind of second stringers to some part. And then there was another group as well called Great Lakes Avengers, I think it was what it was called. And they were really weedy. I mean, they were like the really weedy Avengers, and I forget exactly who they were, but they were funny characters. They weren't powerful at all. They were really sort of Z-listers. Okay, I find this a little bit cringy. So this comic is called Superboy and the Ravers, and it came out in '97, and it was kind of towards the back end of the. I mean, people weren't doing raves so much by then. You know, the raves was the early '90s, and by the time the late '90s came about, all that kind of rave scene had become something that a small group of people carried on to this day doing, of course. But it wasn't the kind of huge thing it was when it first started. And to kind of call them ravers, and they're all teenagers, kind of. Superboy was a kind of girl-chasing, fun-loving, attention-loving character. He came along briefly when the real Superman had died, and he was one of several replacements who tried to fill the gap. It was a fun enough comic, but it was a bit cringe in a way, I thought, anyway. And then, here's another X-Force. X-Force is okay. The main character in X-Force was Cable, who, those of you who've watched recent X-Men movies will have seen Cable appear, not X-Men, Deadpool movie, where Cable appeared in the second Deadpool movie. I thought quite a good characterisation of what I expected Cable to be, so I enjoyed that in the Deadpool movie. Anyway, that's pretty much everything I've got to talk about. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what my plans are. So, I've come to the conclusion that it will take me the rest of my life to sell all these comics on eBay. And I don't want to sell them as a job lot to a comic shop for 20p each or something, because I know that there's quite a lot of value here. So I've been valuing them carefully. I've always downgraded the comic grade rather than upgrading it where possible when I've entered it onto Comic Base, so that I get a lower value rather than a higher value. And I've been very careful to check that everything I've got is what it claims to be and is the right version of the cover. And I'm about halfway through, and my collection is worth about £14,000 according to Comic Base. So I'm guessing that by the time I finish, I know I've still got some of the better boxes to get to, so I'm guessing I'm going to have a £25,000 collection here, at least nominally. Now, in real life it's not worth that, but nominally that's what it's going to be worth. I don't want to sell that to a comic book shop for £2,000 or something. I'm just not interested in doing it. And also I'm enjoying it so much, I want to do more of it. So I'm going to do a comic selling website where all my comics are going to be listed on there. It's going to take a very long time indeed, but they'll appear in batches. Along the way, I'm going to buy new stuff. I'm going to review old stuff that I find that I think you might like that I'm selling, or sometimes I'm not selling. And I'm going to review new stuff I receive, let you know what's good about that. And I'm going to ask you guys, if you're watching this and you enjoy this podcast, to tell me what you think, to give me ideas, to tell me stuff I should check out. And if you want to do a guest podcast on Manticore, and you've got something to say, then hit me up and let's talk about it. Let's see if we can work out a way to do it, because there must be lots of us out there. There must be lots of us kind of older comic book collectors from our youth who let it lapse a bit but have still got the comics. I bet there's a number in every town in every Western country in the world and beyond. And I hope that this, in some way, this podcast helps others in my position rediscover the love for comics that I'm feeling at the moment. I'm excited about it all. And if it don't, well, we don't. Anyway, here's the music again. See you soon.